This is part 2 of last week's podcast.
It's difficult to have training when there's no one there to train. So that's really why God called me out and said, you've done a great job there. Now go teach other places as a consultant. And
welcome to CV Ministries Church Security Through Prevention podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Blevins. Terry Berringer is a nurse by profession, and he has used that experience as well as different areas that he has served at his church to start church emergency consulting in the Pennsylvania area. Terry brings a bit of unique perspective that you should be able to get some ideas about how your teams are serving at your church. I just want to take a moment to let you know how much I appreciate the feedback that I get each week and to see how the podcast has grown in just under a year that we've had it going. The podcast has been liked, shared, and subscribed to by many, and I want to encourage you to continue to like, share, and subscribe as we get closer to closing out our first year with doing this weekly podcast. I also want to encourage you to please click on the Google review link or just go out to Google and leave us a review for CV Ministries. You may not realize how important that really is to churches around the country that are looking to us as a resource as they continue to go forward in growing their church and their ministries. Let's hear from Terry and his perspective on serving in your church. Yeah, I think, for many of the officers, so a couple things on that. The officers that we've had serve on our teams have been great. And I talk about this often. I've done podcasts with officers that they recognize too that just because they may be a police officer or were or have whatever that looks like, that they may not be the right individual for leading a ministry in regards to security, because it is totally different. But they do make awesome trainers in many cases.
Oh, yeah.
And having them as a resource in a responding manner is huge. A lot of ours will say, yeah, here's where, we're here today. If you need us, let us know. Here's where we're sitting, that kind of thing. We know who they are in our congregation because we have a great relationship with them. And in that. So, I get that. The Good Samaritan law, yeah, I think what it has come down to for the medical and for the police is either they, ask forgiveness thing, don't ask for permission, ask for, forgiveness. Yeah, that type of mentality, but that has been less of the mentality to where they have to start checking with their anything off duty wise that they're doing that could be brought back to the department. They have to be more careful about, and we're seeing the same thing with the medical end of things. Yeah, it is that insurance piece. You may have only seen one, but how many of the others are even checking with their insurance? And that individual probably, I don't know that every physician carries their own liability insurance on their own. Somebody working for a hospital.
I think we have to.
Do you? Yeah. It's just something I don't know whether the hospital covers it for them or if they were out on their own, they'd have to have it their own. I don't know what that, and maybe that dentist had to have his own, but I know that was part of the issue with many of the. Now we do have medical individuals. If we have a medical emergency, they come out of the woodwork at our church. We had a guy have a heart attack, this doctor and I'm really careful. You may have heard on a previous podcast, if I've even talked about it, I'm really careful to ask what kind of a doctor are they. We got burned really bad with a guy saying, yeah, I'm a doctor, I can help here. Well, he was a psychologist with no medical training. Yeah, and he had actually even lost his license to practice psychology. We later found out, but that's a whole nother story in that. But that kind of taught us, it was one of those incidents that we learned from to say, okay, what kind of doctor are you? And fortunately, this guy, he and I lifted this older gentleman out of the pew, put him in the aisle, and started to get his heart going again. But he was, and then we had a couple nurses come out of the woodwork too, which was awesome in that. And unfortunately, and I had one get really mad at me, but we first security guy on scene controls the scene, and we had enough nurses, and another nurse comes up and says, I'm a nurse. I said, well, thank you. We have 3 other nurses and this doctor here right now helping out. We don't need any more at this time. Holy cow, was she offended, and was angry at that. But yet, you can't have, we can't have chaos and too many, people leading the train there.
I had a situation one time where a woman got up and said, I'm a nurse, I'm taking charge. And our medical team, who are uniformed with lanyards, photo IDs, responded and got there and asked this woman to step aside. And she said, no, I'm a nurse, I got this. And our security thankfully stepped in, kind of tapped her on the shoulder and said, ma'am, we have a skilled, trained medical team here. Please step aside. And she was once again also very offended, but I said, ma'am, if you'd like to join the medical team, I can have a meeting with you and we can go through an interview process and we'll be happy to get you on the team. But until then, we have to, and it's funny because she kept saying, I'm a nurse. And this gentleman was having a cardiac situation, and now a cardiothoracic surgeon was on duty, and he shows up with a red shirt with a little snake on a stick, the caduceus, and the church's name on over the right chest. And other person on that team at the time was an emergency room nurse. So she had this gentleman who had gone down, had an ER nurse and a cardiothoracic surgeon. I can't think of a better team that you would want on a cardiac call than that. And this woman still kept saying, but I'm a nurse, I want to take charge. And I'm like, no, please step aside. And there are times where you have to physically say, all right, you're done.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then back to the other aspect, and I keep thinking of, our church is a large church, so we have a lot of resources, a lot of personnel that we can do a lot of different things with. And I think of the churches that are, the majority of the churches in America are your small to mid-sized churches. They're not the large churches. And
300 people, I think, is standard.
Yeah, pretty much. To where, they need to, this is where that total team concept comes into play, that if there's an emergency, those ushers, those greeters, those, staff members, whatever the case is, need to step up. But there's nothing wrong with pointing to somebody and deputizing them and say, hey, I need this hallway blocked off. Don't let anybody down here while we're attending to this individual. People are more than willing usually to jump in where, there's always people, hey, how can I help? Great. I need you to call 911 and I need you to stand right here next to me as I relay information to you. Whatever the case is. I mean, deputizing individuals to fill those gaps, it can be huge. Or I need you out in the parking lot and I need you to direct EMS to the right doors and so on.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like I said, though, even if a church has 200 people, you would be surprised. And some of the best people on the medical team, you always try to have one, for the lack of better terms, higher skilled person on the team. But the person who is backing them up, I jokingly used to say, any mom who has gotten their child to the 18th birthday alive can serve on the medical team, because they've already patched up everything you can think of and taken care of the majority of things you're going to be taking care of in church. 98% of the things are coming out of that we talked about earlier, boo-boo box. And those are the ladies and the gentlemen who have raised kids that are the perfect person for the medical team. They don't have to be licensed professionals. And once again, I'm not knocking police officers. I think police officers are awesome on the team. I just don't think it should be all police officers, or a lot of times police officers in a leadership position have a tendency to try running the security team as a police officer, or as a police team. And that's not what you want. The security team in church is first and foremost a ministry. We are there to get people the help they need and direct them to the people that they need to see, not to, prevent them from worshiping. Some of the people who need to hear the gospel the most are those people who you would think, why would you invite them into your church? There's the gentleman that I actually partnered with my consulting company. He used to say, he was a chief of police, and he told me one time, the people that you invite into your church are the people that I get paid to throw out of places.
Right.
And that's exactly it. These are people who are hurting and people who may have issues, and those are the people that God has called us to minister to. And the other issue with the security team specifically, I'm a big proponent on the security team having some type of uniform shirt, whether it be just a polo shirt with the a small word security, church security, or the name of the church, or there's a billion and one different names. You can call them the shepherds, the sheepdogs, the gatekeepers. I mean, there's all these different cute little names you can go with as well. But security is basic and the most understandable. But I found that after many years of doing this, the people who hate the security most are actually the maintenance workers, because security are the ones that are out there in the lobby patrolling. And it's those people who people are coming up to them and saying, hey, the second stall in the bathroom won't flush or is backed up, or hey, room 123 is cold, can you turn the thermostat up? And we would say, well, we're not maintenance, but we will contact them. And we had a 16 channel radio that on one channel, one was security and medical, and on channel 16 was maintenance. So no matter which way you turned that dial, if you got to the end, you got somebody. And medical and security was on one. We would just flip over to 16 and call maintenance and say, hey, toilet in room in the bathroom install 2 is plugged, or this room needs the thermostat turned up. Can you take care of that? So we actually got to the point where every time you'd switch over to 16 and say, maintenance, this is security, they'd say, what now? So, but what a great opportunity. People were coming to the security team because they needed help, whether that was their kids lost, they can't find their car battery's dead, or the toilet's overflowing. They came to somebody and they got help. And that's what ministry is all about, helping people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the church is there for the hurting and the broken, and this is where I talk about that the security team needs to be that outside, needs to be observing who does need that help while they're out and about. So I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into what you just said to a little bit. Something that we have to be careful of, particularly in certain counties here in Colorado. The county I'm in, we cannot put anything on us that identifies us as security. If we do, then we have to go get a state license.
Right. That's familiar also with Texas, I understand.
Yeah, I know there's different parts of the country that are that way. Ohio's got some really funny laws about even anybody serving on their security team. Ours, we've had a security team for about 13 years now. Right after the New Life shooting, there's 2 big churches in town, a New Life church and then our church. And we just want to take a quick break here to let you know how to contact us and where to find out more about our national seminar. I see communities that may know why church security is important, but they may not be doing anything about it or don't know how to do it well. Our national seminars are for ushers, greeters, children's workers, staff, volunteers, your security teams, and other ministries in your community. We say that this is a level 1 training that is designed to help equip you to serve well in your various ministries while maintaining a safe place for people to come. Getting churches on the same or similar page when it comes to security will only make the community safer as well. The easiest way to find out more information or to contact us is to go to cv-ministries.com. There you'll find a variety of training DVDs and books, with more being developed all the time. There's also a place at the bottom of the page where you can sign up for our monthly newsletter and to be able to get more information. We would love your feedback on topics or guests that you would like to hear on future podcasts. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's get back to the podcast. And we stood up a security team right after the New Life shooting, and it was pretty small, and but that's when we really got going. But it In the 13 years that we've done it, we don't wear a uniform. We do have a pigtail, into our ear. With we do have a 16 channel radio that we utilize on a repeater and so on. People recognize the pigtail, but all of our ushers have them. Children's workers have them. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all on their own channels. If we have parking on the holidays, then they have them. So it's people just kind of know. But I really count on our security team recognizing people that might be looking lost and so on as well. Keeping cognito, let's say, for lack of a better term, has seemed to work really well for us to be able to respond to situations and it kind of de-escalates it right from the start.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
In many ways. My son started a new job and he was talking to his coworker, and the coworker said, "Well, so what did you do this weekend?" "Well, I went out, shot 200 rounds with our security team, did some, move and shoot training stuff out at the range." And he's like, "Well, that's great." He said, "I think my church could use a security team." And my son says, "Well, what church do you go to?" And so he gives the name. He says, "Well," he says, "that is my church." He says, "We have a
Oh,
70-man security team." And he's like,
wow.
"I didn't even know that." What campus do you go to? "I go to such and such campus." And my son said, "Well, then I guess we're doing our job well,
Yeah.
because if the service can go on, ministry can go on, and we can stand on the wall without drawing attention to ourselves, but continue to minister to people, I think that's a win-win in it. And that's the way my son approached it with this guy too. Was like, well, then I guess we're doing our job well because we have security at every campus.
I agree with that. There's two sides to that coin. I'm on I think the odd side. A lot of people go exactly with that undercover concept. I like the visible deterrent aspect of having a security team. If someone's going to come in, they're going to see somebody in the lobby, hopefully in the lobby, with a shirt on that says security. And in Pittsburgh, in southwestern Pennsylvania, there's quite a few churches. From the church that I was employed at, you could get to probably 8 different churches within a 5-minute walk. And at that point, it was great to know that if somebody came into into the lobby and saw somebody with a church security shirt on, they would go, you know what? I was going to do something, but you know what? I think I'm going to go across the street and take care of my dirty deeds over there, because they don't have anybody, or at least they can't see anybody. So there is a big visible deterrent there. I also,
Okay,
like I
so
said,
let's
especially for oh,
let's look at it
go
from
ahead.
a different perspective a little bit. Too. I mean, I totally get what you're saying, and it could go either way. I'm not
Yeah,
saying one
I'm,
way's
I'm
right
not
or the
saying one
other.
way is better than the other.
Yeah, yeah, but I can also see it from the standpoint of, like Colonel Grossman talks about the open carry individual, when we're out traveling and doing seminars. He talks about, that individual that is the open carry individual. He considers them his decoy. Because if somebody's really
Yes.
wanting to do harm, that's who they're going to take out the individual that poses the greatest threat to them first. I kind of look at the security team identifying themselves in that manner. Yes, I can see it as a deterrent. We do hire law enforcement for our campuses, and we look at them as that deterrent also. And not every church can do that, but but I don't know that putting on I'm going to use the term uniform. I know that's not correct, but whatever that might
Yeah,
look like, whether
I
it's
don't want to.
something that identifies them in some way as security, readily identifies them as security, could potentially create that same effect as if somebody's open carrying, to where, okay, that's they've come, they've checked out the church. Now I know who I need to take out first if I'm going to cause the greatest harm with the least amount of resistance in
And I
it.
realized that to be a potential hazard there. Up until last shooting in Texas, and it's a shame that we actually have to say the last shooting in Texas. That means there's been more than one, but there's never been a situation where a gunman or an intruder or an active intruder came in and took out a identified security team person first. And even in the shooting in Texas, I'm not sure the gentleman that he did take out that was sitting down in the pew, he was there to monitor him. I'm not sure if he was an active security member or not. So
He was an active
yeah,
security member in that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's, there's no perfect answer in it.
yeah.
And in however we do this, it comes back to, where we started today is that there needs to be that total team concept, that there needs to be the different ministries working together, having those medical individuals identified and developing them into a team is great. If that's what your church decides to do in that, but having the necessary resources and personnel is vital to the security of the church, and knowing who they are and not just assuming that, well, it's not going to happen here.
Well,
And
that's
it may
a
not.
concept that is not just dangerous, but it's also prevalent. And I know I'm going to knock my hometown area here in the Northeast United States. Um, all the training I've ever received has been out west, south, Florida, Texas, Colorado, Kansas City. I've gone all these places. There's not a whole lot in the Northeast United States for training. It's difficult to have training when there's no one there to train. So that's really why God called me out and said, "You've done a great job there. Now go teach other places as a consultant." And oh, believe me, I fought that like the Dickens. I did not want to go. I was quite comfortable and happy where I was. I had 175 volunteers under me. I did everything from security church, security concerts. We brought in some great big names for concerts, did all that and had a wonderful time. But God said, okay, go now, spread your wings and go and do my work. And it's funny when you don't do what God wants you to do, he will eventually drop you, take your legs out from underneath you and cause you to go where he wants you to go. I had a little Jonah moment kind of thing there. But once again, you were talking about how the teams work together. The biggest situations like that is to make sure your medical team is on radio, your parking team is on radio, and obviously your security team is on radio. Because if there's a missing child, that's another one it's a great one. When there's a missing child, not just security gets up, parking comes, starts looking on the outside. Medical team starts actively searching in the building as well. The ushers on radios, they start looking in the worship service. So everybody jumps into to duty, and same thing with fire alarms and all those type of things that you need all hands on deck. And what's also nice is if you have medical team in the worship service or in the nursery or whatever, you now have another set of eyes to contact security if something does not look. And they're all taught situational awareness. They're all taught what to look for. The infamous Strategos JDLRs, just don't look right. One of the biggest things I teach when I go into churches is 4 simple words. When somebody's coming in the building and either you don't know them or you just have that Spider-Man, spider sense, however you want to call it. Whenever you just don't feel comfortable, you ask 4 individual words that just solves everything. May I help you? And it does 2 things. One, if they are indeed lost and they're looking around because they're confused, yes, you may. Can you tell me where the children's ministry is? Or yes, you may. Where's the coffee? Where's the bathroom? You can find and help them, and once again, minister to them. But the other aspect of that is this other side of that coin is if they are there to do wrong, to do evil, cause a problem, they now know you have addressed them. You see them, you recognize them, you've seen their face, you know their voice, you know exactly what they're up to if they do try to do something. And that's once again why I'm going to jump on the uniform concept. They know now somebody from security has seen them, and at that point you've got a radio in your ear, and all you have to do is say, hey, I got a guy that just doesn't seem right. He's going into the stage left door of the worship center. Can we keep an eye on him? And the other thing with security is you always want to have, we refer to them as hot seats. a seat on the left and a seat in the front, a seat in the left front and a seat in the right front. You have security touch base with production staff to find out what they're doing that day. If there's anything unusual. A great story I love to tell was the pastor was speaking about a missions team, and as he said, we have missions team in Cleveland. So as he said that, a man and a woman stood up and started walking down the center aisle, and security on the left goes, we have people coming up the center aisle. Any ideas? Guy on the right said, no, I have no idea. They immediately both stood up and started to crisscross in front of the stage. At which point, the pastor finished by saying, and these are our missionaries from Cleveland coming up to the stage. At which point, I have to give these guys total kudos. They stopped and they held the arms of both the man and the woman and helped them up the steps, as if that's why they got up.
Right.
They helped them up the steps, and then they peeled off and went back to their seats. And it was one of those things that it could have been something else, and they responded appropriately. They did what they were trained to do, and thankfully, it was absolutely nothing, and we all got a good chuckle out of it afterwards. But it was just an ultimate example of what happens. Don't just sit there and let somebody walk up on stage. So those are one of those moments that actually really make the day. We've had days where we've had 2 medical calls, a lost child, and a car break-in on the same Sunday. And those are the extreme days that are rare, thankfully. But those are the days where your teams really do their job. And I'm a firm believer in having at least a 4 or 5 man team with a team lead every Sunday. And if your church has 2 services, the first service you will go and spend time with your family worshiping. You can wear an earpiece, because you can be another set of eyes while you're in there. That's not a question. That's greatly appreciated. But during the second service, then you serve on the security team. So make sure your people who are working security are fed. And that's one of the biggest problems you're having with those 200-member churches. There's one guy that does security. He does it every Sunday. He hasn't heard a sermon. He hasn't been through a Sunday school in how many years? And that's the worst thing you can do to have a security on a security team, is to not be feeding your personnel.
Well, Terry, I appreciate you taking your time today and coming on and talking about this concept of combining these different teams, of developing these different teams within the churches, and the importance of that. It's something that can never be talked about enough, I don't think, because it's not on the forefront of many churches. They've got other things on their mind, and yet it is another ministry nowadays, like any other ministry within the church, and needs to develop the same way. So I appreciate your time today. All
right, no problem. I greatly appreciate the time to spend together, and look forward to hearing from you some more on the podcast. It's a great podcast. Can't speak highly enough of it. And like I said, the fact that you got Carl Chin there and those guys to touch base with, I envy you. I really do. I'm quite jealous.
All right. Well, thanks. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this podcast. If you really enjoyed it and you found it of benefit to you, we really appreciate your feedback. There's several different ways that you can provide us feedback. One of them is to subscribe to the podcast, is to share it with others, and another is to contact us directly, particularly if you have any questions or concerns, or you want more information on how to host a seminar in your community. You can contact me directly at danielblevins@cv@heart.com, or you can go to our website at cv-ministries.com. Both of those will get you in the right direction. Until next time, make sure that you're out there protecting the flock with a heart of service.